My wife slept with her boss for a $200K bonus, then lied about everything. Now she's trying to take my house, my savings, and even my inheritance, and I have no idea how to fight back. It all started with a gut feeling that I couldn't shake, but I never thought it would lead to something like this. My wife had always been the kind of woman who knew how to keep up appearances. She dressed well, acted like she had her act together, and always had a reason for why she couldn't be home early or why she was too busy to talk. But over the last few months, I noticed little things. Phone calls she'd hide from me, late nights at the office, weird text messages that she quickly deleted when I got near. I brushed it off at first, telling myself she was just stressed, or maybe she was working late. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then came the bombshell that I never saw coming. I was going through her phone one night, something I rarely did, but I was just curious, and I found messages that made my stomach drop. They weren't just innocent flirtations or work-related. Emails. No, they were explicit, and they were from her boss, Jake. The tone was intimate, suggestive even. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about how much she was tired of pretending everything was fine at home. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Had been sleeping with Jake for months. I saw the dates, the times, the incriminating details. And the worst part, she was lying to me every step of the way. It hit me like a punch to the gut. How could she do this? We had a life together, 2 kids, a house I worked my ass off to pay for, savings we'd been building for years. And for what? A $200, $0 bonus that Jake promised her if she kept quiet and played along. I couldn't wrap my head around the betrayal. She was so manipulative about it, too. When I confronted her, she played the victim, said I was overreacting, that it was just sex, that Jake was just a business acquaintance, and that I was jealous and paranoid. She spun this web of lies so convincingly, I almost started to doubt myself. The night I found out, I was furious, but also devastated. I felt numb, like I'd been punched in the chest. I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, for not noticing the signs, for trusting her so blindly. I had always thought we had a good life, that we were happy. Turns out I was just fooling myself. Watching her lie to my face, denying everything, made me realize I was living in a fantasy. She was a different person behind closed doors, cold, calculating, and willing to burn everything down for a quick payoff. That's when I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. How do you fight someone who's been lying to you for so long? How do you rebuild after something like this? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew my life was about to change forever. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept circling back to the betrayal. The woman I loved, the mother of my kids, had been lying right to my face for months. And the worst part, she was so good at it, so convincing, that I started questioning everything. My own judgment, whether I ever really knew her at all. I spent the next couple of days trying to piece things together, digging through her emails, her social media, anything I could find. I wanted to know how deep this thing went. It was like peeling back layers of a lie. The more I looked, the more I saw how she had planned it all: secret meetings, coded messages, excuses about work trips that never happened. She'd even gone as far as setting up a separate bank account, I later discovered, to hide the money she was earning from Jake. And that's when I realized she wasn't just cheating on me, she was actively trying to take everything I had. I confronted her again, this time more forcefully. I told her I knew about her affair, about the money she'd been hiding, about her plans to leave with the kids and the house. Her reaction: she shrugged, smirked, and said, "You're overreacting. You don't understand how hard I've been working. It's not just about Jake or the money. You're just insecure. Maybe you're the one who's been cheating." That was her go-to line: turn the tables, blame me, make me doubt myself. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I saw right through her. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. The woman I had trusted for over a decade had turned into someone I barely recognized. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies. Every memory, every moment we'd shared, was it all just a lie? I kept replaying those nights, those conversations, trying to find some sign I missed. But the truth was, I had been blind, completely blind. And now I was left with this shattered life, trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. In the days that followed, I realized I had to make some tough decisions. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. I wanted to fight for my family, but not at the expense of my dignity. I started talking to a lawyer, gathering evidence of her financial schemes, her affair, her plans to take everything I owned. I knew she was planning something. I could see it in her eyes when she'd get defensive or try to change the subject. She was trying to manipulate me, to convince me that I was the one at fault, but I wasn't going to let her win. I also started talking to friends and family, trying to get some perspective. Some told me to fight for her to save what I could. Others said to cut my losses and move on. Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. I couldn't trust her anymore, and I didn't want to be a victim of her schemes. The more I learned, the clearer it became. She was planning to drain our savings, sell the house, and run off with the money she'd earned from Jake. That's when I decided I had to act fast. I couldn't let her take everything I'd worked for, my house, my savings, my inheritance. I had to find a way to protect myself and my kids. So I started documenting everything: texts, emails, bank statements. I even hired a private investigator to dig into her finances and her whereabouts. I knew she was planning something, and I was determined to be ready. I wasn't about to let her destroy my life without a fight. The betrayal was too deep, and I was angry enough to do whatever it took to get justice. I didn't want her to win, not after everything. I just didn't know yet how I was going to do it, but I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done. By the time I had all the evidence I needed, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief because I finally knew the truth and had proof to back it up. Rage because I was furious at her betrayal, at how she thought she could just lie, cheat, and steal her way out of this mess. The more I uncovered, the more I realized she wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively trying to rip apart everything I built, everything I cared about. I sat down one night and made a plan. First, I needed to protect my assets. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in divorce and financial disputes. We discussed the best ways to safeguard the house, my savings, and the inheritance I was counting on. She had no idea I was onto her, which was good. I also learned that I'd been secretly talking to a real estate agent, trying to put the house on the market behind my back. That was the last straw. I couldn't let her take everything without a fight. At the same time, I decided to confront her one last time, this time with everything laid out on the table. I told her I knew about her affair, about her plans to drain my bank accounts, and about her attempt to sell the house. Her reaction was pure defiance. She scoffed, said I was just jealous, that I was insecure, that she deserved better than a guy who didn't trust her. She called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her, and said I was the one breaking the marriage, not her. I could see the venom in her eyes. She was trying to gaslight me, to make me doubt my own instincts. I didn't back down. I handed her the evidence I'd collected, screenshots of her messages with Jake, bank statements showing the secret savings, even the emails with the real estate agent. Her face turned white when she saw it all, but she still refused to admit anything outright. Instead, she doubled down, claiming I was trying to ruin her, that I had no right to interfere in her life. That's when I realized she was trying to spin the story in her favor, to paint herself as the victim. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew she was planning to leave, to run away with the money, and I had to stop her. The emotional toll was intense. I felt like I was losing my mind at times, one moment furious, the next deeply hurt. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, how I'd missed all the signs. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to protect my kids and my future. I started talking to a financial advisor, figuring out how to freeze accounts, file for protective orders if necessary, and prepare for the worst. I was getting ready to fight for my rights, no matter what it took. Meanwhile, started to act even more bitchy and manipulative. She accused me of being paranoid, said I was ruining her reputation, and threatened to take me to court if I tried to stop her from doing what's best for the family. But I had the legal backing now, and I wasn't about to let her steamroll me. I made it clear I was serious about protecting what's mine. I told her that if she tried to sell the house or run off with the money, I'd fight her all the way. I wasn't going to let her destroy my life without consequences. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking about what this all meant for my kids. I didn't want them to grow up in a broken home, but I also refused to let her tear everything apart out of greed or revenge. I knew I had to stay strong for them, for myself. I wasn't sure what was coming next, but I was determined to do whatever it took to come out of this with some semblance of control. I'd learned a painful lesson about trust, about how people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face or a fake smile. And now, I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. The more I pushed forward with my plan, the more true colors showed. She started to get desperate, throwing tantrums, yelling at me in front of the kids, trying to manipulate everyone around her. She'd call me paranoid, say I was overreacting, accuse me of trying to ruin her reputation, just to keep her from leaving with her prized possessions. It was almost laughable how she tried to spin everything, but I knew better now. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. She kept insisting she was the victim, that her affair with Jake was just a fling, that she never intended to hurt me or the kids. She claimed she was just trying to find herself, that she needed this to be happy. Yeah, right. I saw through her lies. She was just trying to justify her betrayal, to make herself look innocent in her own twisted way. She kept saying she deserved a better life, that she was tired of living in my shadow, that she wanted to be free. I couldn't believe the audacity. Meanwhile, I was gathering everything I could to prepare for a legal battle. I hired a lawyer who specialized in divorce and asset protection. We started the paperwork, filed for a temporary restraining order to prevent her from selling the house or withdrawing money from joint accounts. I also put a freeze on all our joint finances. Every step I took was calculated, precise. I knew she was planning something and I had to be prepared. I was also secretly recording her outbursts, her threats, her lies, just in case I needed them later in court. The emotional toll was heavy. Every day felt like walking a tightrope. One moment I was furious, the next I was just devastated. I thought about my kids, what kind of life they were going to have if their mother was this manipulative and selfish. I kept telling myself I had to stay strong for them, for me. I couldn't let her destroy everything with her greed and her lies. I started to see how she was trying to turn the tables, painting herself as the wronged wife, the victim of my paranoia. But I refused to buy into her game anymore. Her behavior became more erratic. She started showing up at the house unannounced, demanding to see the kids, trying to guilt-trip me into backing down. She'd cry, scream, call me names, anything to get her way. I stayed firm, refusing to let her manipulate me. I had the evidence, I had the law, and I knew she was trying to push me into a corner, but I wasn't going to let her. I had already decided I would do whatever it took to protect my assets and my children. One night she confronted me in the driveway, yelling and crying about how I was ruining her life. She said she'd take everything, my house, my savings, my inheritance, and leave me with nothing. I looked her in the eyes and told her she had no idea what she was messing with. I warned her that I had everything documented, that I had the law on my side, and that if she kept pushing, she'd be the one paying the price. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about her trying to steal my life out from under me. I felt a strange sense of calm despite all the chaos. I knew I was doing the right thing. I had to protect myself and my kids from her greed and lies. I also knew that I couldn't stop her from trying to manipulate everyone around her, but I could make sure she didn't get away with it. I was ready to go to court, to fight for my rights and to hold her accountable for her actions. I was learning that sometimes, the only way to deal with a toxic person is to stand your ground and fight back with everything you've got. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Once I filed for divorce and secured the temporary restraining order, his face shifted from defiance to panic. She realized I wasn't backing down. I could see her plotting, trying to come up with some new scheme to avoid losing everything. She started throwing more accusations, claiming I was trying to ruin her life, that I was just bitter because she found herself with Jake. But I had everything documented now, the texts, the bank statements, her attempts to sell the house behind my back. She became more aggressive, showing up at the house unannounced, trying to guilt me into letting her stay, crying about how much she still loved me. She said I was the one causing all the problems, that I was just jealous and insecure. I didn't bother arguing anymore. I knew better. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me, to make me feel guilty so she could keep her grip on what she wanted, but I stayed firm. I told her she was not going to get her way this time. In the courtroom, things got intense. My lawyer presented all the evidence, screenshots of her affair with Jake, proof of her secret savings account, her plans to sell the house. Tried to deny everything, but her lies unraveled quickly. The judge saw through her manipulations, saw that she was trying to steal my assets and run away with the money. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger when the judge issued a preliminary order to freeze her assets and prevent her from selling the house. I knew this was just the beginning, but it was a crucial step toward protecting what was mine. Meanwhile, kept up her act, trying to guilt me into saving the marriage, claiming she'd change, that she'd stop seeing Jake if I just let her stay. But I wasn't buying it. I knew her game. I could see her desperation, her manipulative tactics, and her obsession with money. I had to stay vigilant. I continued gathering evidence, working with my lawyer to prepare for the next phase, divorce settlement and custody arrangements. The emotional toll was still heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted. I kept asking myself how I'd let things get this far, how I'd missed all the signs. But I also realized that I had no choice but to move forward. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and greed. I had to protect my kids and myself. There was a part of me that felt broken, but another part was furious, furious at its betrayal, furious at her greed, furious at how she thought she could just walk away with my life. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to get through it, to fight for what was rightfully mine. That's what kept me going. The final hearings were a whirlwind. The attempts to manipulate the court and turn everything against me failed spectacularly. The judge saw through her lies, her attempts to hide assets, her affair with Jake, and her outright betrayal. It was clear she had been scheming for months, trying to drain our joint accounts, sell the house, and run off with the money she'd earned from her affair. The court awarded me full custody of the kids, froze her remaining assets, and ordered her to return the money she had taken illegally. It was a long, exhausting process, but in the end, I managed to protect what was mine. I got the house, the savings, and the inheritance I worked so hard for. Plans to take everything fell apart, and she was left with nothing but her own lies and a tarnished reputation. She tried to spin it all as me being paranoid and controlling, but the court saw the truth. I felt a strange mix of relief and bitterness. Relief that I had finally taken a stand, bitterness that it had come to this. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from all this. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the people you least expect. I also learned that sometimes the only way to fight back is to gather evidence, stay calm, and not let your emotions cloud your judgment. I had to become a different person, stronger, smarter, more cautious. I won't lie, it hurts to see what became, but I also see it as a lesson. I'll never let someone manipulate or betray me like that again. Now, I'm rebuilding my life. The house is quiet without her, but it's mine again. I'm focusing on the kids, making sure they feel loved and secure. I started therapy to deal with the emotional scars, and I've become more cautious in trusting people. I still feel angry sometimes, but I channel that into being a better father and a stronger man. I hope my story can serve as a warning. Trust is earned, not given freely. Be vigilant, protect yourself, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. In the end, I've come out of this battered but wiser. This betrayal didn't break me. It made me realize what truly matters: my integrity, my children, and my future. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I'm stronger now. And that's enough to keep moving forward.